Knowing your role in the brand new book Acquisitions Incorporated for D&D is essential to not only understanding what you should be doing, but also understanding the benefits that you get for doing so.
So one of the things, if you want to make manifest like the entirety of the dark office comedy motif, then people have to have corporate roles and jobs, and they have to have responsibilities that are associated with that, right? What happens in that context, like in a humorous way, has to do with how people of different skill sets and skill levels interact. It's the those sorts of hierarchies, however they're shaped, like that's like the core of that type of humor, basically.
We have introduced 8 new roles to place onto your character. 4 of them have been seen in the C Team, which is our spin-off show, and that is the cartographer, the Hoard's person, the decisionist, and the documancer. And those are currently assigned to our 4 main cast members of the C Team. But then we are also introducing 4 new ones, and that includes the Secretarian, the Obviator, the Occultant, and the Loremonger. And all of these have slightly different spins on what you can be in terms of an Acquisitions Incorporated employee.
Each of these 8 corporate roles have they have a specific responsibility to the franchise and the company, but each of them also includes a unique arcane tool that assists them in executing their assigned duties. Some of them we've seen perhaps on the C Team. For example, a documancer. So a documancer in Acquisitions Incorporated terms, it's like paperwork, but like elevated to an arcane art. So what can happen there's all these tales of devils binding people into contracts and blood signatures and things like that. Well, what if there was like a more minor version of that that simply gave the paperwork and filing a little bit of extra heft, and also makes it easy to do things like copying documents and things like that. Like there's always been a little bit of that in D&D, but Documancy takes it to another level because they have methods of communicating over great distances, but also tracking things of importance for the franchise. We also have Loremongers, who have a device called a whisper jar that they use to collect information from people they interview. They also act as sort of like the lore keeper for their part of the franchise. Secretarians exist in a distinct social role where Secretarians is like the part of your company that talks to other franchises. So they can talk to the head office, but Secretarians excel at sort of knowing what the gossip is inside the company, and having access to that sort of unfiltered channel of data and perspective and opinion can be very useful for the franchise as well. So we have heaps and heaps of things like that in there. Like I say, in each case, a unique role. In a lot of cases, these roles played correctly at the table do a couple things. They give people a sense of where they exist, like their coordinate in the overall organization and also the local franchise. They have specific responsibilities they can do and be rewarded for them. But if they're doing them right, in a lot of cases, they're helping the dungeon master as well. Because if they're tracking important pieces of information, if they're tracking kills and things like that, like you might see with an occultant, these things all sort of filter back and basically even the load at the table, I think, from a toil perspective.
So the occultant tracks the number of kills in the party?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they do. An occultant, the occultant role is interesting, in my opinion. I mean, I'm obviously, I'm biased, but the occultant, and especially the canonical occultant, Talanatha 3 coins, is one of the cooler characters that one of our artists, Aviv Orr, put together. And we fell in love with her instantly. Like, everything that I want that class to be is sold in that art. But, so occultants like Talanatha their task is to discern the sort of cosmic coordinate of the party, where it sits like on the edge of a knife between balance and chaos. They can, as they gain more power, they can sort of, they can adjust the party's karma in one direction or another. They track all these events. Kills are one important part of it, right? That happens at every D&D table basically, but they track just events that occur to and by the party, out into the world. And they have a device that is also called an occultant that they use to track this and then try to divine proper courses of action and things like that. It's I mean, every one of the classes has something like that in it. And so a Hordes person in Acquisitions Incorporated parlance, essentially they're the ones who hold all the party's stuff. The truth is, I mean, in every party, eventually somebody takes that job or it's thrust upon them. But in Acquisitions Incorporated, Hordes person is given a specific tool with which to help make that job, both at the table and in the game, proper and possible and smooth. So in their case, they have a Hordes person's bag. And we go into that a little bit, the sort of the mythical underpinnings of that bag we go into in the stream game. But essentially it's like a mimic that has decided to be a specific shape, right? And it wants to be a bag, and it wants to eat items. It likes being a Hordes person's bag, basically. But its belly exists back both inside the bag, but it is it's sort of like located in two places. So the head office can put things in or remove things. So if you were sent out to get an item, you can simply place it in the bag. The head office can grab it. The Documancer can let them know that, you have secured the item, for example. The roles sort of overlap with each other and allow for a lot of creative interpersonal play. So Decisionists have a coin that they can flip if they need to. Basically, a Decisionist, they have an interesting connection to the head office in that they can be the sole voice of a franchise. But in addition to that, whenever the party takes a vote on something, Decisionists get 2 votes. So they're basically the tiebreaker. And so whenever things filter down to that level, whenever it comes down to the actual metal of the decision-making process, their thumb is on the scale. Another favorite for me, and when it was introduced in the C-Team stream game, is an Obviator. So Obviators are sort of like, they are specialists in solving dangerous problems, and they do that with a combination of information and practiced study. So they have with them a kit that they can use to prepare various protections against monstrous creatures, but really anything that gets too strange, any overwhelming factor. Obviators specialize in tamping that down.
That's awesome.
But like I say, when you crack open the book, that section will have 8 of these. And what's more than that, it doesn't just have the 8, it doesn't just have the arcane items that they have in there. It also shows exactly how their skills improve, what they can do as they gain ranks in that job. And that, of course, goes along with how the franchise itself is doing. So as the franchise grows in power, so too do the ranks of these. But it's possible to get spot promotions for excellent work on the way up. But the cool thing about all that stuff is that to sort of help you understand what it might be like, we've established what we call our sort of canonical representations of these jobs. if you're a fan of the shows already, you might know certain characters that represent those jobs. But in the book, each of the jobs I've described and the ones that I haven't all have a unique character with a unique personality. They're statted out, so these would be delicious NPCs even just to introduce, or maybe to take a character in your party under their wing and show them the ropes.
So the thought is that you could have a D&D campaign with maybe 3 of these roles or 4 of them. You could honestly even try to get all of them into your franchise at some point, whether they're through NPCs or through the PCs in your game.
It has been 10 years in the making, but we finally have an Acquisitions Incorporated book. And that book is available on D&D Beyond's marketplace. You can find that book by clicking on the link in this video description. I'm Todd Kenrick. Thank you so much for watching.